Shachiputam Atrasparupam Rupam Tasakajamuripurim Maturim Goshtuvatim Radha Kundamadirivaram Ahoradikamadvasam Rapto Yasapateta Kripaya Sri Guru Tantos Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Itadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Anandalila Maya Vigrahaya Hema Bhadibhyatsavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Bhaktya Vedha Aparada Lakshay Chilkastakamaritaram Kamati Kripa Mahita Shanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Vrinde Namaste Charanaravindam Govinda Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Hey Krishna, Hey Adama, Hey Saketi Govinda Damodara Madhaveti Sam Sundar Skandashika Swahas Murali Manada Radhikarasa Mama Kripanidhi Supriyajana King Kurim Kuru Tvaivasmi Tvaivasmi Najbami Tayavana Jivikyaya Devi Tam Namam Chanantikam Shri Radharaman Lala ki jai. First of all, I offer my sustaining Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers thousands and thousands of times, at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmadiya Paramarata Jama Guru Pada Padma, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada, Vishtotar Satasvi, Rupa Anugacharya Varya, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Parama Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada, and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, Vanchakalpatulvasa, Kripas and the Vedas, Putinam Pavani, Vaishnavis, By the causeless mercy of Sri Guran Gauranga, we have been discussing the inconceivable and unlimited glories of Sri Harinam, the holy name of Sri Krishna. Actually, one type of vikalpa, that means a non-correlated thought construct that arises from language, is the use of the possessive case. It often happens. For example, we say the Brahmin's body. So what does that mean? The Brahmin's body. Because the soul inside is a Atma. And soul is not a Brahman. Right? So the body itself is the Brahman. It is not that the Brahman has a body. The body is a Brahman body. And the soul is beyond the gunas and beyond the designations of the world. But still, by words, we create ideas which are not true. The Brahman's body. It's wrong. So in the same way, we say Krishna's name. But this is not true. Why? Because Krishna is his name. The name of Krishna is Krishna. We can say that the name of Krishna is an aspect of his Swarup. But because his Swarup is indivisible, every aspect of his Swarup is equal to all the other aspects of his Swarup. Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti pasyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti. All the senses of the Supreme Lord are interchangeable and they can perform the functions of all the other senses. Because Krishna is indivisible and absolute. So Krishna's name, though we can say it, but this name is Krishna. Krishna has two swarups, Vacham Vachakam Tudeti Bhavato Nama Swarup Dvayam Purvasmat Parameva Antkaranam Tatrapi Janimahi Yastasmin Vihita Paragani Vaha Prani Smantas Bhavet Asya Nidam Spasasopi Hi Sadanam Dam Buddho Masjati. Srila Rupa Goswami Pad said, Krishna has two swarups. His own Vigraha, his own body, and his name. And though these two are actually the same, there's no difference, but still there's a speciality, there's a difference. What is that? Krishna's name is more merciful than his Swarup. His Swarup is here. And if you serve the deity and you commit some seva aparats, then you will not get mercy. But if someone is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, the holy name will remove all the reactions of the offenses committed to the deity. And then take that devotee and turn him with his head down and his feet up and plunge him into the ocean of rasa. This is the power of Nam. Sankirtana hoiti papa sangsara mochan Shuddha chitte sarva bhakti sadhana udgam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explaining his own verse of Shikshastakam, Chaitanya Darpana Majan. He said, Sankirtana hoiti papa sangsara mochan. By chanting the holy name, then all the sins by which our material existence is going on, they're all destroyed. And the chitta becomes purified. And then in that Shuddha chitta, Sarva Bhakti Sadhana Udgam, all types of Bhakti Sadhana awaken there. One cannot physically, mechanically enter into Raganuga Bhakti. But when the chitta is purified by Harinam, then this internal service awakens. So Shuddha Chitti Sarva Bhakti Sadhana Udgam. Krishna Prem Udgam, Premamrita Ashwadan, Krishna Prapti Sevamrita Samudri Madhyan. Then Mahaprabhu said, as the devotee goes on chanting, his heart becomes full of prem, and he tastes the amrita, the nectar of that prem, and he directly meets face to face with Sri Krishna and serves his lotus feet, and then Sevamrita Samudra Madhyan. That means then that devotee sinks into the nectarian ocean of the service of Radha and Krishna. So all this is accomplished simply by the chanting of the holy name. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme scripture among all scriptures. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Swarupa Sri Bhagavat Sarva Veda Shastra Vaite Parama Mahatva. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the Srimad Bhagavatam is Bhakti Rasa Swarupa, the embodiment of all mellows of love. Sarva Veda Shastra Vaite Paramat Mahatva. Therefore, among all the Vedic literatures, Srimad Bhagavatam is supreme. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chikara Bhagavan Rishi Nistreya Saya Lokasya Dhanyam Swastayanam Mahat. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God Himself. It is a Vanmoyi Murti. That means sound incarnation of Krishna. Idam Bhagavatam Nama. This Purana Brahma Samhitam. This Purana, which is called Bhagavatam. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Purana. Brahma Samhitam means it is the same as Parabrahma Sri Krishna. Uttama Shloka Charitam. It contains the pastimes of Sri Krishna, Chakara Bhagavan Rishi, and it was compiled by Bhagavan himself in the form of a Rishi. In other words, Sri Krishna appeared in the form of Vyasadeva and manifested the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nisreyasaya Lokasya. The Srimad Bhagavatam bestows Nisreya, the ultimate, supreme, auspicious and glorious prospect of life on every living entity. Dhanyam Swastayanam Mahat. Srimad Bhagavatam is all successful, all auspicious and completely perfect. So this is the general meaning of the verse. But there's another meaning. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Purana Brahma Samhitam. Not only that this Bhagavatam, this Purana which is named Srimad Bhagavatam is equal to God, but Idam Bhagavatam Nama Purana. That means that Bhagavatam is the Nam Purana. It is that Purana in which the highest glories of the holy name have been expressed. And therefore, it is also called Nama Purana. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Purana Brahma Samhitam. So everywhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, Adokta and Chaita Madhyecha Hari Savatta Giyate, the glories of Sankirtan have been described everywhere. From the very first verse, Satyam Param Dhimahi. I meditate on Paramasatma, the Supreme Truth. In Vedic literature, there's some common points in the first verse and the last verse. So the last verse of Srimad Bhagavatam says that Nama Sankirtanam Yasya Sarvapapa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukha Shamanas Tam Namami Harim Param. All glories to this Harinam Sankirtan. It destroys all sins, so I am bowing down to the Supreme Lord. Tam Namami Harim Param, Supreme Lord Hari, whose holy name destroys all sins. So, in Vedic literature, there's a common point in the first and last verse. So this last verse, which is giving the essence of all spiritual life, bow down to Nahadapi Sunichena and chant Kirtanya Sadahari. This last verse. And this first verse, Satyam Param Dhimahi, I meditate on the Supreme Truth, are saying the same thing. Why? Because meditation comes automatically from the chanting of the holy name. Especially in Kali Yuga. The formal type of meditation is not possible. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur used to say, Kirtana Prabhave Smarana Hoibe, by the power of Kirtan, then Smaran, meditation will awaken internally automatically. So from the very first verse to the last verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, only the glories of the holy name have been given there. In the first canto, Apanasang Sutim Gauram Yannamavi Vasogrinam Tatasa Dyovi Muchita Yad Bibeti Swayambayam. The living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can very easily be delivered by chanting the holy name just helplessly, accidentally. Avash. Avash means here helplessly. That means if you're walking along the side of a cliff and there's a landslide and you fall off the cliff, and you say, "Oh Krishna, hey Bhagavan." If you are walking on the road and you trip and fall and you break your leg, if someone is beating you with the stick, Krishna, Krishna, save me. All of these things are described in Shastra. What is avash? Helplessly chanting. If you have a fever and you become delirious and you call out the name of God. If you're being bitten by a snake or a tiger, and you call the name of God, this is called the avash, helplessly chanting. So even this helplessly chanting completely liberates the soul from the complicated meshes of birth and death, which are very difficult to escape. And because this name, This name is Yad Bibeti Swayam Bayam. Those who chant the name don't have to fear Yamaraj, the god of death, because death himself, fear himself is afraid. Fear personified is afraid of the holy name. So, all throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, we see the glories of the holy name. Prahlad Maharaj, Hiranyakashipu tried to kill him in so many ways, but he's always saved. How? Well, by chanting the holy name. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto even, in the Rasa Leela, Padanyasa Bhuja Viduktibi Sasmita Bru Vilasai Madhyan Madhyais Chalkutupatayai Kundalai Gandalolai Sujanmukya Kavarasana Grantaya Krishnavadho Gayanchastham Tadidiva Itata Mega Chakre Virejuhu. In the Rasa Leela, it said, oh, Krishna is so beautiful, but he looks more beautiful when he's in the middle of the beautiful golden Braj Gopis, just like a emerald looks more beautiful if it's set in a golden stone, in a golden ring. So Krishna he's so most beautiful, but he looks more beautiful when he's next to the gopis. And gopis, when they are dancing, Bhajan Padanyasa Bhuja Vidutibi, placing their foots in beautiful steps of classical dance, moving their arms in so many gestures, abhinay, smiling, moving their eyebrows. Their hair was in a very beautiful braid, and it was becoming loose as they were dancing. They were taking their cloths, their veils in their hands and spinning around. It was so beautiful and colorful. Their faces are decorated with the pearls of perspiration. And at that time, Gayanchastam Tadidiva Itata Mega Chakre Virejuhu. Then the Braj Gopis, they're so beautiful, like a flash of lightning on a fresh rain cloud. But the Grantaya Krishnavadho Gayantaha, they're chanting, gopis are chanting, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So here the implication is that Krishna is the most beautiful in the world. But Krishna becomes more beautiful when he's in the company of the Braj Gopis. But the Braj Gopis become more beautiful when they chant Krishna Nam. So everywhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, from beginning to end, in one way or another, the Dhwani, the implication is the glories of Sri Krishna Nam. Krishna said to Uddhav, Nat ta me priyatama atma yoni na shankara na sankashna na shri maiva yatha bhavan. Uddhav, no one is more dear to me than you. Brahma, who is born from me, is not as dear to me as you. Lord Shiva, who is not different from me, is not as dear to me as you. Lakshmi Devi, my own Shakti of opulence, is not as dear to me as you. Even Sankarshan, my own brother, is not as dear to me as you. Mahatmaiva yatha bhavan. Even my own Atma, my own soul, is not as dear to me as you are. Krishna said to Uddhav. But he never said, even my name is not as dear to me as you. He never said this. Srila Sanatana Goswami Pada has explained this meaning. So in this way, the glories of the holy name, one way or another, they are found directly or indirectly or in a hidden way in the Dhwani, in the suggestions, in the echo of suggestion of Srimad Bhagavatam everywhere. Therefore, idam Bhagavatam nama pranam brahma samhitam. So, when Srimad Bhagavatam is expressing the glories of the holy name directly, especially that is given in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the history of Ajamila. So raise your hand if you know the history of Ajamila. Yes? Yes. Do you know at the back there? Ajamila? Yes? Okay. So sometimes the devotees, they think of this and it's like a kind of horror story, with the Yamadutas, very scary, death, and these things. But actually, this history of Ajamila, Shukadeva Goswami is speaking it with a very tender purpose, with a very moving purpose. Why? First of all, perhaps you know that Srimad Bhagavatam has 10 characteristics. A Mahapurana has 10 characteristics, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. Atra sarga visagascha stanam poshnam utaya manvantari chanakuta nirodo mukti asraya. First creation, the first creation of the Supreme Lord, then the secondary creation of Lord Brahma, how he takes the elements manifested by the Lord and then creates the universe and populates the universe. So primary creation, secondary creation. Atta sarga visagasya, then sthanam. Sthanam means the situation, the maintenance of the 14 planetary systems, from the Brahmalok all the way down to the lower planetary systems and down to hell. The maintenance, that means sthanam, of the various planetary systems and the rules of life for each dimension of the universe. So this is called sthanam. So that is the third symptom of a Mahapurana. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, though there's something of all the 10 symptoms in each of the cantos, but still there's a predominance of certain aspects in each canto. So the first 2 cantos, they deal with the Adhikar Lila, showing us what is the eligibility for bhakti. And then the second canto deals with the primary creation, the third canto, like this, and it goes on. So especially sthanam has been described in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, because there is a description of the various planetary systems, the structure of the universe, and the hellish planets, and all the tortures that are given to those who are sinful as their punishment, which is prescribed by Yamraj, the god of death. So now, in the 5th canto, the subject comes Dhanam Poshanam. Poshanam means the protection that the Supreme Lord affords for his devotees, and the affection that the Lord has for his devotees, even if they do something wrong, even if they transgress dharma. So there in the 6th canto, you will find the protection that the Lord affords to Ajamila, to Indra, and Chittaketu Maharaj. And they all did different degrees and different types of terrible things. But they were devotees. But they did terrible things. But still, the Lord is so kind that he has Poshanam. If someone is a devotee, someone is chanting the name, and they're trying to make some progress somewhere or other, even if they fall down, even if they have a problem, even if they have many problems, even if they transgress dharma, but because they've chanted the name, because they've begun, the seed of bhakti is imperishable. It cannot be destroyed by anything. So somehow or other, the Supreme Lord, he extends Poshanam. He reaches out and he extends his protection to those devotees. And he extends his affection to those devotees. And so that is called Poshanam, and that characteristic is being illustrated here in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with the history of Ajamila. Understand? So this is about the glory of bhakti and the compassion, the love of the Supreme Lord unto even his most unworthy devotees. So Shukadeva Goswami Padi, he describes that after hearing about the 5th canto, about the punishments which are given to persons in the hellish planets, then Parikshit Maharaj, he was feeling so much compassion for the souls who have to go there. So Parikshit Maharaj said, "O Shukadeva Goswami, if someone has committed sins. And they are destined to go to hell. How can they become free from these sins? How can someone become free from the reactions of their activities? Then Shukadeva Goswami, he said, one can perform atonement. There are rituals in the Vedas, prayaschita, by which one can become free from the reactions for sinful activities. So, depending on how irreligious, how adharmic the activity is, there are degrees. There are some atonements which are small atonements, and there are some atonements that you have to practice for 12 years for very grievous sins. So Shukadeva Goswami spoke this. Why? Because he was testing Parikshit Maharaj. It is a completely wrong answer. But the Guru, he must do the pariksha, examination of the disciple. Especially before initiation. The Guru must test the disciple before initiation. And the disciple should test the Guru also before initiation. So they should stay together, and during this period the Guru Pasati or Guru Pada Ashray should last for at least 1 year. And then, if all the doubts of the disciple have gone away and the Guru is satisfied, then the fruit of Guru Upasati, of taking shelter of the Guru, comes in the form of receiving initiation. Then after initiation, the disciple cannot test the Guru anymore, because it will be Guru Avagya. It will to minimize or to neglect or criticize in the mind the spiritual master. After initiation becomes a Namaparad. But the Guru can continue to test the disciple. Now, here, Shukadeva Goswami is giving the answer. If someone did sins and they're going to go to hell, how can they become free? So Shukadeva Goswami said, yes, in the scripture there are a process of prayaschita is given, so they can do this. So he was seeing if his disciple was really paying attention. So Shukadeva Goswami was very happy that Parikshit Maharaj passed the test. He was paying attention, and he said, oh, but Maharaj, I think that this atonement is useless. Why? Because it's seen that persons who are sinful and then they do an atonement ceremony to get free from the reaction of that sin, afterwards then they sin again. Because their tendency to sin doesn't go away. So I think this is Sarvam Kunjar Sochavat. This prayaschita process, atonement process, is just like the bathing of an elephant who is covered in dust, and then he wants to get clean, so he goes in the river, but as soon as he comes out the river, he throws dust all over himself again. So Parikshit Maharaj said, I think that this atonement is useless, with all respect. Shukadeva Goswami was very happy. So he said, yes, you're right. Because the atonement removes the pap, the reaction of that sin, but it does not remove the root of the sin, which is avidya, ignorance. And because ignorance is the root of sin, therefore sin can only be properly counteracted by jnana. If avidya, ignorance, is the root, then sin can only be remedied by knowledge, by jnana.
I don't think so.
Yeah, this is test number 2. Very good. Shukadeva Goswami is very thorough. He's testing again. So Shukadeva Goswami said, Tapasa brahmacharyena samena cha damena cha so chagena satyasochabhyam yamena niyamena va. You can develop knowledge by what? Tapasa, performing austerities. Brahmacharyena, by observing brahmachari life. Samena, controlling the mind. Damena cha, and controlling the senses. Tyagena, by renunciation. Satya, truthfulness. Sochabhyam, observing the rules and regulations of purity, ritualistic purity. And yamena niyamanava, and by following the 5 yams and the 5 niyams of yoga. So that means the 5 yams: ahimsa, non-violence; satya, truthfulness; asteya, non-stealing; brahmachari is also included in there; and aparigraha, non-possessiveness, over-collecting and possessiveness for things. And the 5 niyams: soch, cleanliness, tapa, austerity, santosh, practicing contentment, practicing being content under all circumstances. Swadhyay, which means studying scripture and also repetition of your mantra, and Ishvara Pranidan, consigning one's fate to the will of the Lord, the spirit of surrender. So by these things, these are the yams and niyams of yoga. So when Shukadeva Goswami suggested, by this path of Gyan, developing the knowledge of Atma and Brahman, then you can get free from the avidya. Then Parikshit Maharaj, he was just like Dharmaraj. He made a face. He didn't say anything, but he just made a face that he was dissatisfied with the second answer also. So then Shukadeva Goswami said, Venu Gulman Ivanalaha. That means it's true that all the sins will be destroyed in the same way that a forest fire destroys a forest of bamboo. Venu Gulman Ivanalaha. Just like the fire of Venu Gulman that destroys a forest of bamboo. So the meaning here is that if there's a bamboo forest and the whole place burns down, it's just black, there's just ash there, but the next time it rains, because the roots of the bamboo are still in the ground, very quickly the whole forest will just grow back. So seeing the dissatisfaction on the face of Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami said, yeah, actually Gyan is just like the burning of a bamboo forest. So then, now he was very happy that his disciple had passed his 2 tests. So then he gave the conclusion. Keichit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agan dunvanti katsnena niharam hiva bhaskara. Only by kevala bhakti, pure bhakti, not mixed with karma, gyan, yoga or anyablas, worldly desires. Only this kind of bhakti can remove all, not only pap, sins, not only pap bij, the desires for sins, those impressions in the chitta, but also avidya, the root of everything, all problems. In exactly the same way that the sun removes the fog in the morning. In the morning time, at the time of dawn, before the sun rises, little bit of light comes and you can see there's fog everywhere. Especially from the window here, you just see fog and fog for miles and miles. But then what happens? Then when the sun actually appears, then all the fog is gone. So in the same way, Papa Bij and Avidya are all destroyed only by Kevalaya Bhaktya. Kevala Bhakti, unadulterated Bhakti. But he uses the word Kechitiya. Kechit, Kevala. Kechit means some persons. That means some fortunate persons. Not everyone. Of course, everyone will eventually get the chance, but at any one time in the world, there are few who are actually absorbed in the Shuddha Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti. Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. Such great souls are very rare. So, Shukadeva Goswami said, Bhakti to Krishna is so wonderful, it is so powerful, that even if a person absorbs their mind in the lotus feet of Krishna just once, even if their mind is not pure, it is still the guna ragi, having some attachment to the gunas. Or even if they remember Krishna only in their dreams, then that person will become liberated and free from all sins in this world. So, he's not saying that you should only think of Krishna when you're dreaming in your sleep. Or that you should have a mind which is attached to the gunas. But by Kim Uta, the logic of what more, he's showing that if even a person who does not have a strong basis of bhakti, that is indicated by his saying a person who only once absorbs his mind. Because a person who has a strong basis of bhakti, they'll try to absorb their mind in Krishna every day. Every day without fail. But he's saying if a person only once absorbs his mind in Krishna, so they don't have a strong foundation of bhakti. Secondly, absorbs the mind. That means even only thinking. What to speak of actually engaging in hearing his pastimes and chanting. his glories? Only the mind thinking. So powerful. Thirdly, the mind doesn't even have to be completely pure, and the fact will still come. Because he said that mind which is attached to the gunas. And fourthly, because he said even in a dream, it means that even you don't have to be in deep meditation. Because in dream you are so much rajas is there in dream. Rajas and tamas, but mainly rajas is in the dream state. And then when tamas becomes stronger, then deep sleep comes. So, Shukadeva Goswami is glorifying the power of bhakti, that only by the touch of bhakti, very slight touch, one becomes liberated. So, Kim Uta, that means then what to speak of the effect of a person who is knowingly, every day, meditating with a pure mind. Now, Shukadeva Goswami wants to give an illustration of the efficacy of bhakti, which begins with the chanting of the holy name. How it's extremely, inconceivably, impossibly powerful. And for that very purpose, and because in this canto he wants to express Poshanam, how the Lord protects his devotee, even a wretched fallen devotee, and how the Lord is affectionate to anyone who engages in bhakti in any way, even unknowingly. So now Shukadeva Goswami is beginning to tell the history of Ajamila. So he said that in South India, in the city of Kanyakubja, there was one Brahmin. His name was Ajamila. But he fell into a very sinful life. He gave up all of his practices and he lived with a prostitute. And with that prostitute he had 10 children. And he became very old, up to the age of 88. And his last son was named Narayan. He was very attached to him. So one day he was there and his son was nearby, and the moment of death came. So when the moment of death came, suddenly he saw 3 creatures, Yamdut, the messengers of Yamaraj. Their bodies were covered in hair. They had very ferocious teeth and ugly, distorted faces. And because he had committed sins with his body, mind and words, so 3 Yamaduts came with ropes, and they put the ropes around his subtle body and they were taking him out from the physical body. And seeing this, he was terrified. So now modern materialistic people, they think that this is all a fantasy, this is all story, this is not true. But they will get a very big shock. In the last moment of life, very big shock. So he was so sinful, and he was shocked. And then in great desperation he called out, Narayana. 4 syllables, Narayana. So when he called 4 syllables, at once 4 beautiful shining persons appeared there. With complexion like a rain cloud, with very beautiful golden crowns and earrings and garlands, and with 4 arms, with a disc, club, conch, lotus, and carrying bows, arrows, and various swords and weapons also. And these 4 persons immediately appeared there, and they cut the rope. And the Jamduts were afraid and they backed off. So then, these shining persons, they said, stop, leave him. They said, why are you impeding us? We are the servants of Yamaraj, the servants of the Supreme Lord Yam. They thought Yamaraj, their master, was the controller of everything. They didn't know there was anything more than Yamaraj. The Vishnudut said, oh, if you are the servants of Yam, and actually they mentioned that because they were afraid. When the Vishnuduts came, the Yamaduts were afraid. So they tried to say, oh, we're the servants of Yam, death. So it was kind of like a threat to them, because they were afraid. So the Vishnudut said, if you are really the servants of Yamaraj, then tell us, for what reason does a person become punished? What kind of punishment is given to what kind of activity? Who decides what punishment will be given? And who is punished? Is everyone punished or only certain persons? Answer our questions. So then, the Yamduts, they composed themselves. They said, Vedo Narayana Sakshat Swayambhu iti Susamaha. The Vedas are directly the form of Narayan. And they are self-born. Swayambhu, we have heard that they are not created, they are not composed by anyone. They are a form of Narayan and they appear themselves. And in these Vedas, all the rules and regulations of Dharma, what is religious life, are given, and Adharma, what is against Dharma. Those persons who do Adharma, who go against what is written in the Vedas, they have to be punished. So that is our job. Yamaraj sends us to bring those persons to him, and then he decides what punishment they will have, and then they go to be taken for that punishment. Now this person here, he is very, very sinful, and that's why we came to take him. And then they began to explain their case before the Vishnuduts. They said, this Ajamila was a very pious young Brahmin man. He was very strict in all of his sattvic practices, following Dharma. He used to do yajna every day. He would serve his parents. He would take care of his wife. And so he was a very good and a pure-hearted person. But one day, he went into the forest on the order of his father to collect wood. And while he was collecting wood, he saw there was a Shudra, a low-class person, and the Shudra was with a prostitute. And they were drinking, both of them were drunk. And they were enjoying together in an amorous way. He looked, and then he looked away. But then he could not check himself, and he looked again. And then he quickly collected his wood and he went. But it was too late. Poison had entered into his heart through the eyes. So he went home, and then he began to continue his life. But there was a problem. Those visions, the lusty thoughts were coming into his mind, and he was remembering that prostitute again and again. He tried to absorb himself in his karma, in his dharma, in his duty, but he could not. So then he tried to remember the instructions of Gyan, but this did not help either. So it shows that karma and Gyan cannot save us. When some samskar, some impression from a past life is triggered in the heart by some circumstance, and it comes into the mind, then no one can control the mind by karma and Gyan. So gradually he just could not stop thinking about this prostitute. So then he went to her and proposed to her. And he had a very nice wife who was very chaste and religious. He gave up his wife. So now, this prostitute was very greedy. She wanted ornaments and clothing and to enjoy in so many ways. He needed money. So then he beat his parents. He stole their money. And when their money ran out, he became a dacoit. Began to rob people and kidnap them, tie them up, beat them, steal all their wealth. He even killed brahmanas. Actually, he became completely criminal just to satisfy the demands of this prostitute. And in this way, he was engaging in lusty activities for many, many years, and 10 children were born, one after another. And when he was quite old, the last son was born, and when the child was born, he said, we'll call this child Narayan. So now, because he's very, very sinful, the time of death came, and actually, he was going to have a longer life, but by doing so many sins, he reduced his lifespan. And so now we're coming to take him to Yamaraj, and he is fit to be punished. So then, the Vishnu Dutas, they said, alas, alas, How has adharma touched this dharmic assembly? This is very bad. The common people, they don't have evolved consciousness. So they have to have leaders that tell them what is right and wrong. So if their leaders, they deviate from what is right and wrong, then all the innocent people whose consciousness is not evolved, they cannot calculate or understand clearly what is detrimental for them and what is auspicious for them. So they have to be leaders in society, the brahmanas, and the kshatriyas are under the guidance of the brahmanas, and the devatas, and they all follow dharma so that the persons with lower consciousness can follow some example. Yad yad acharati shrestas tad evetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanuvartate. See, Krishna said, whatever activities a great person performs, the common people follow. So it's taken as the praman for what is proper behavior. So the Vishnu Dutta said, this is terrible. You are Yamdut, you are the followers of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is a powerful devata in society. And you are going against dharma. Because on this day, you want to inflict a punishment on a completely innocent person who is totally pure. The Yamdutas are amazed. And I think everyone is amazed when they hear this. How is it that the Vishnu Duts are saying this person is completely pure? Why? They explained to the Yamduts, Sarvesham apyagavatam idam evasu niskritam nama vyaharnam Vishnu yatastad vishayamati. Very beautiful. Sarvesham apyagavatam. If a person has done all kinds of sins, like arson, setting fire to someone's house, stealing gold, or sleeping with his guru's wife, they gave a list of so many abominable, unthinkable things. But Sarvesham apyagavatam, if someone has done all of these things, then idam eva suniskritam. Certainly, the best and complete prayasthita, which purifies them, is what? Nama Vyaharnam Vishnu. By simply speaking the name of Vishnu. And from this, Yatastad Vishayamati. This is very, very important. Yatastad Vishayamati. It means, Yataha, from this chanting of the name, Tad Vishaya, that subject here, that means that sinful person, Tad Vishayamati. The mind, the mati, the consciousness of the Supreme Lord becomes absorbed in Him, the one who chants. So this is the glory of the holy name, because the name is none different from the Swarup of the Lord. The Shuddha Nam is none different from the Swarup of the Lord. Even Namabhas, the reflection of that pure name, is so powerful that even a person who says the name, he may not be absorbed in thoughts of the Lord, but the Lord becomes absorbed in thoughts of Him. Yatastad Vishayamati. It's quite amazing. And therefore, the Vishnu Dutta said, he's completely purified. So the Yamaduts were thinking, oh wait. The sign that someone has sins is that they engage in sin. So if you're saying he was chanting the name of Narayan, but he was sinning all the time, how is it possible? So the answer is this, that don't think it was the name of Narayan that Ajamila chanted at the last moment of his life that freed him of all sins. This is not a fact. The very first time when his child was born, the first time he said, your name will be Narayan. That first name, one name, destroyed all of his karma, past, present and future. Destroyed totally all his pap, his sin, all his papa beach, his seeds of sin, the samskars related to that, the desires related to that, and even all of his avidya, which covers the awareness of the soul. All of them were completely destroyed by the first name. Then after that, throughout the 5 years of the child's life, oh Narayan, come here, Narayan, sit down, Narayan, shut up, Narayan, eat this, Narayan, go outside and play, oh Narayan, come here, Narayan, your mother's calling you. Every time you say Narayan, 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 Narayan. This was like a kind of bhakti, a bas. And by this, gradually, the Supreme Lord was thinking of him, and at the last moment of his life, when he called out Narayan, then the Lord glanced upon him mercifully and sent his 4 Vishnu doots to come, to go there and save him. Now one may say, if all of his sins were destroyed, then why is he sinning again and again if the first namas destroyed everything? And the answer is that it is like the snake. If the teeth of a snake have been removed, then if you go near the snake will still go and rise up like this, and even bite you even. But it will have no effect. So in the same way, by purva abhyas, by previous habits, Ajamila was going on doing sins, even after he'd said the name of Narayan. By purva abhyas, by previous habits. But those sinful activities were not making any reaction at all. Because it was like the biting of a snake with no teeth, no poison inside. Another example is given. If there's a rope which is coiled up, and then you pour gasoline on the rope and you set fire to it. So it will go up in flames, and then when the flames die down and the fire goes out, you look and you can see the rope is still there, but it's black. It's completely black. Now it looks like a rope, but actually its essence has gone. Only some shape is there in the ash. So if you pick it up to try to bind something with it, it will just crumble to nothing. So in the same way, though it looks like Ajamila, or any person who has chanted Namabhas one time, it looks like they're still going on in karma in this material world. But actually not. That's only the outer shape. And at the moment of death, when it comes to where your sins, your reactions grab you and take you to hell, then at the moment of death there's nothing there. And that person can be liberated. But generally, if they have not developed bhakti yet, pure bhakti, then the Supreme Lord will make that person take birth again, even though they have no karma. So that that seed of bhakti, which is starting to appear in their heart, it can sprout some leaves and flowers, and the fruit of Prem will come. And this is why it is said in Shastra that na karma bandhanam janma vaishnavanam na vidyate. A Vaishnava has no karma bandhana and no material birth. This does not apply only to those persons, the Vaishnavas from the spiritual world, who are coming here. They have no karma bandhana, of course. They have no birth like an ordinary person, because they appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. But if a person in their previous life has somehow chanted the holy names, all their sins are finished. So then how will they take birth again? So it is the Supreme Lord Himself who mercifully creates the shape as if there's some karma there, so that they can develop and become perfect in their bhakti. Therefore it is said, na karma janmanam bandhanam janma vaishnavanam na vidyate. If someone very enthusiastically takes up bhakti in this life and is a Vaishnava, they must have some practice from before. You see? So if they have some practice from before, they have no karma. So their birth is not an ordinary janma, and they're not bound, they have no karma bandhana. So it's very amazing. And this is why Narad Muni, explaining the glory of bhakti to Vyasadeva in the first canto, he says, Na vai janu jatu katanchana vrajan mukunda sevanya varanya sansutim smaran mukundangri upaguhanam puna vihatam itschenna rasagraho jana. Even if a devotee, Narad is explaining to Vyas, even if a devotee, due to some weakness, falls down, he does not take birth in this world like others, like materialists, karmis and gyanis and yogis. He does not take birth in this material world in samsara like karmis and jnanis and yogis. Why? Because a person who has once tasted the nectar of bhakti, he can do nothing but again and again remember that sweetness of Sri Krishna. And he's always wants to embrace the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. So the meaning is that the person who has somehow come in contact with bhakti in their previous life, even when they fall down or they have any problem or difficulty or leave bhakti, but they will come back. And they will take birth in the next life. They will not take birth in samsara, material existence, like karmis, jnanis and yogis. That means that those who are not devotees, they take birth in samsara to experience their pap and punya, the reactions of their sins and the reactions of their pious activities. But the devotee also takes birth, he does take birth in this world, but not like them, anyavad, that is not like the others. Why? He takes birth in this world to experience happiness and distress, which is not karma, but it's given by Krishna himself, therapeutically, medicinally, and to give him a chance to develop his pure bhakti. And therefore, you should always remember, Tattenu kampam susumikshmano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam ridvava pubi vidadanamaste jiveti bhuktis padesa. The devotee thinks that, oh, everything that is happening to me, this is Krishna's mercy. Now, bhakti is so powerful that actually there are only two stages. There are only two stages. First, you chant the name Hare Krishna, and then get Krishna Prem and meet with Krishna. There are not many stages, in fact, there are only two. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Subudhi Rai in Kashi, he said, Eka nama basi toma papa dosa jabe ara Krishna nama loite Krishna charna paive ara nama loite Krishna charna paive. So the meaning is, Eka nama basi toma papa dosa jabe. If you chant the name offenselessly, one nama bas, just one time, all pap dosh, all the defects of sins go away. Ara nama loite. And then you chant the name of Krishna again, and you attain the lotus feet of Krishna and Prem. So there are only two stages. The first name destroys everything, the second name gives Prem. So then, why do we say adosradha, tata sadhu, sangata, bhajanatriya, tata nada, nibritisha? All the stages of bhakti? That is for persons who they have some history of offenses. So, if a person has committed some offenses, then instead of being two stages, there are the stages adosradha, sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, nata nibriti, nishta ruchya, sakti bhava, and then Prem. And this is the gradual eradication of those offenses, gradually. Otherwise, bhakti is so powerful. Boom, boom, all over. Two things. So, generally, we see in Kali Yuga, the living entities, they have committed so many offenses, so they're coming in the line of bhakti and they're slowly going through the stages. Another thing is that the namabhas, even though it destroys all papa, bij and avidya, but it will not necessarily manifest its effect. It's done. But the shape of the karma of that person is still there. So that person and the world doesn't know about it. It happened. The destruction of everything happened. But the world doesn't know about it because the Nam has not manifested that effect yet, though it has been completed. So the manifestation of the effect is like the fruit of a tree. The fruit does not come every day. The fruit comes in season. So when Supreme Lord considers it's the right time, then though the effect was done, but it will be manifest and known to the world. Another reason why the Supreme Lord hides the effect of the power of the name is because it will destroy everyone's faith in karma, jnana and yoga and so on. And so those persons, they won't practice these things at all, and the maintenance of the world and civilization, everything will go down. So to not destroy completely all the institutions of karma, jnana and yoga, so something is hidden. Another example is given is, if there is a servant of one wealthy tycoon, there's one wealthy merchant, and he has a servant, but that servant is misappropriating funds. So then, though that servant has a very good and comfortable life, but his master rejects him and kicks him out from the company. So now all of his privileges have been withdrawn and he's suffering so much. But afterwards he felt repentance. So he came back to that company and he was not accepted, but he just started working without any pay. So he was just working every day without any pay, and he was working so nicely. Slowly, 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 he regained the trust of his master. And after some time, then his master re-established him in the privileges. So in the same way, if a person has committed offense to the name, then what should they do? Chant the name continuously. Nama parada yuktanam namanevya harantyagam. A person who is afflicted with offenses to the holy name, they should chant continuously, and the holy name gradually, when Nam Prabhu sees, oh, he offended me before, but now he's very sincere and serving for free. Serving for free. Because he's chanting, but I'm not giving him any nectar or any inspiration or anything. When he keeps serving, I'm seeing that he's a very loyal servant. Okay, then I will reinstate his privileges, and then Nam Prabhu begins to manifest his powers. Like this. So it's very important. Don't demand from Nam Prabhu anything. I want to see some like fireworks and sparkling lights when I chant. No, don't demand anything. Chant for the pleasure of Nam Prabhu. Our chanting is not for happiness, it's for Krishna's happiness. So chanting continuously, only for Krishna's happiness, without expecting or demanding anything for ourselves, then gradually Nam Prabhu will forgive all offenses and reinstate our spiritual privileges. So this is very profound. Now another question may be raised. Someone may say, look, Ajamila, when he was younger, he was a very pious Brahmin, and he used to do so many yagyas. So you can't do yagyas without chanting names, because every time you do a yagya, then you have to tell, Om Prajapati Vishnu Rishi Gayatri Chanda Shri Vishnu Devata. And you have to say so many names of the Lord when you're chanting different mantras. So, how is it that when he became sinful, when he was living with a prostitute for so many years and he had his 10th child, then he called his 10th child Narayan and he said the name Narayan, then all his sins were destroyed. Because he must have said the name Narayan so many times when he was a young Brahmin doing all these yagyas. Right? Did you ever think of this?
No.
So sometimes people think like this, then they think, oh, this Bhagavatam, this story is there are some holes in the plot. Some plot holes. Bhagavatam is the sound incarnation of the Supreme Lord. There are no plot holes. Everything is perfect. If there's something that doesn't seem to make sense, then we should ask Gurudev and ask Vaishnavas, and we'll find that there's some beautiful mystery in it. So the mystery is this. He was very fixed in performing karmakanda rituals. And he thought these karmakanda rituals are the most important thing in life. He did not put the stress on the holy name. So he knew something about bhakti, but for him it was not important. So he had subordinated bhakti, he had subordinated the chanting of the holy name to the karmakanda rituals. Now what is the 8th offense to the holy name? You remember what's the 8th offense to the holy name?
This is the name of Krishna to be equal.
Yes. Dharma brata tyaga hutardi sarva subhakriya samyam api pramada. Api pramada. Even inattentively, even accidentally. If you think that the chanting of the holy name is equal to dharma, the performance of dharma, huta, making fire sacrifices, tyag, renunciation, shubha karma, auspicious activities, building hospitals, planting trees, digging wells, public welfare activities. If you think that chanting the holy name is equal to any of these activities, this is an offense to the holy name. So, what was he doing? He didn't think that the chanting of the holy name was equal to these activities. He thought these activities were superior. So how offensive is Ajamila? He didn't say they're equal. He subordinated bhakti and the chanting of the name to the dharmic activities. So he was a great offender. And therefore, even though he was doing yajnas and he would say the name Vishnu, Narayan and so on, but there was no effect. But what happened? And this is it's quite ironic. When he was very religious, he was committing namaparad. But when he fell down, and he gave up all of his pious karma, and was a complete sinful rascal, now when he was chanting, he wasn't subordinating the chanting to karma. So it became namabhas. Now don't misunderstand this teaching. We're not trying to say, oh, maybe that's what I'm doing wrong, I have to become completely sinful. And that will improve my chanting. No, that's not the teaching here. Because nam nabaladhyasya hi papa buddhi na vidite tasya yamahi shuddhi. That to commit sins on the strength of the chanting of the holy name is another one of the offenses. So don't try that, because you have knowledge, you know better. But here, it's a very astonishing thing that all of his punya karma, his pious activities, in which bhakti was subordinated, that was all destroyed. The result of that was completely destroyed by his sinful activities. And then, after that, when his pious activities, in which bhakti had been subordinate to that pious activities, when that was all destroyed by his sinful activities, and now he was just saying Narayan, 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 Narayan. First Narayan destroyed all of his sins, it was namabhas, and then after that, the repetition of namabhas causes affection. It causes an eagerness for the Lord, but he didn't understand it. You see, he really, really loved his son Narayan. In fact, the name of his son, Narayan, Narayan, was music to his ears. But he couldn't understand why. Because the first name had destroyed his sins, and then Narayan, Narayan, he was some affection, an eagerness was rising in his heart. And he was thinking this was for his son. And then at the last moment of his life, he called out, Narayana! And the Supreme Lord glanced on him mercifully, and by his glance he sent the 4 Vishnu Dutas to save him. This is Poshanam. How the Supreme Lord extends his protection and his affection to his devotee, even if they're in a very dreadful condition. So the history of Ajamila is very tender and sweet. If anyone would remember it and think how kind Sri Krishna is, their heart must melt. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandhu Jagannate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute. So the Vishnuduts were explaining this to the Yamaduts. Sarve Shama Pikavatam, Idam Eva Suniskritam, Nama Viharanam Vishnu, Yatastad Vishayamati. He is completely pure. He said the name of the Supreme Lord, all of his sins are gone, he's done all complete atonement. Because the name is so powerful, Yatastad Vishayamati. He may have been calling his son, and not his mind wasn't absorbed in the Lord. But Namabhas is such that the Lord's mind becomes absorbed in you when you call the name. So then, the Vishnuduts explained, Na niskrita udita brahmavadibis tata vishuddhapyagavan pratadidi yata hari nama pada udaritaistad uttama shloka gunopalambakam. The meaning is, one is not so purified by Bharatadibi, performing atonement ceremonies for 12 years, as one is purified by Yata Harinama Pada Udharitais, by simply uttering Harinama Padai, the syllables of Harinam. by this, taduttama shloka gunopalambakam, one gets realization of the gun, the qualities of the Lord. Now this verse is very, very deep. The Vishnu Dutas are saying that in Shastra, Brahmadivi, that means the followers of Manu, the followers of Manu's teachings in the Manu Samhita, laws for mankind, they may do so many different types of brats, but they're not completely purified in the way that a person is totally purified by Namapadai, Udaritai, uttering the name. So here, uttering means that the person does not have to be completely absorbed in meditation even. They don't have to be fully attentive even. Because udaritai, that simply means uttering. The person just uttered it, somehow or other they uttered it. Namapadai is in the plural. It can be only one name, but it's in the plural out of respect. Because this is one method of expression in Sanskrit. That something may be singular, but you express it in the plural case out of extreme respect. So a person may even take only one name, utter one name. Or namapada can mean only the parts of the name even. They may say some syllable of the name. They may pronounce it indistinctly or not clearly even. They may not say Madhusudan, they may just say Madhu. Not the whole name even. But still, they will become completely purified. And Uttama Shloka Gunopalambakam, it will awaken in their hearts the gun, the qualities of the Lord. That means His Saundarya, His beauty, His Aishwarya, His opulence, His Madhurya, His sweetness. So the implication here that one begins to realize the Supreme Lord's qualities, His beauty, His opulence and sweetness means that the name gradually awakens feelings of love. Prem. Because without love, then one cannot experience these things. So actually the crown of realization is this. In the stage of Nishta, one is mainly given up Namaparad. So he's chanting Namabhas with Shraddha, with faith. By that Shraddha Namabhas in the stage of Nishta, the devotee sees reflected in his purified chitta the form of Krishna and some of his qualities related to Aishwarya. Then, as he goes on chanting with Nishta in the stage of Ruchi, Papa Bij Nashad, Ruchi hi Papa Bij Nashad Madhuri Anubhavaha, Mukunda Goswami said, the Pap, his sins are destroyed, manifestly destroyed in his own experience in the stage of Nishta. And when Ruchi comes, the seed of sin, the samskars are also destroyed, and that means the heart is pure enough to accommodate the sweetness of Krishna and the associates of Krishna. Then as he goes on chanting in the stage of Asakti, then that Shraddha Namabhas will reveal the Abhas of his Swarup even. And by the Abhas of his Swarup he begins to serve internally. And as he becomes fully absorbed in internal service, then Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suryangsu Samyabhak Bhav appears. And the Bhav appears along with Shuddhanam. Shuddhanam is Shuddha Sattva. So Shuddha Sattva and Shuddhanam, they appear. So Shuddhanam Abhas up to the stage of Asakti, then when Bhav comes, it is the sun of the pure name has arisen then. So here, Harinam Udaritais Tad Uttama Sloka Gunopalambakam. By uttering the name, Namabhas, sins are destroyed, and then go on chanting, and the gun, the qualities, the Aishwarya, the Madhurya, and love manifest by the power of the name gradually. So then, the Vishnu Dutas, they said, Sanketyam Parihasyamba Stoban Hilanam Evava by Kuntanam Grahanam Asheshagam Haram Vidu. One name, Vaikuntanam, name of the Supreme Lord, destroys Ashesh, unlimited sins, more sins than a person can possibly commit. And this Namabhas, the Asarda Namabhas, which is chanted without faith, is of four types. Sanketya, that means to use the name not to refer to God, to refer to something else. This also has two types. First type is, there's something or someone who has that designation which is God's name. For example, Ajamila's son was named Narayan. So it was Sanketya he wasn't calling God, he was calling someone else who was sharing the same name. So in India you see that everywhere. The restaurant is called Govinda's. So are we going to Govinda's? They're not talking about Krishna, they're talking about the restaurant. Right? So this is Sanketya, Namabhas. There's another type of Sanketya, and that is actually referring to Krishna, but you don't think he's God. Like a scholar will say, oh, in India there was some legendary person, hero named Krishna. His stories have been exaggerated or whatever. And they deified him. But he was a very irreligious person. Whatever. So someone may be talking about Krishna, but they don't think that Krishna is God. It's another type of Sanketya as well. So Sanketya Parihasyamba, then Parihas, for a joke. Someone is just saying the name of God for a joke. Then Stobam. Stobam means to keep time in the music. Because sometimes there's a song and you sing the words of the song, and then there has to be like a little break for a quick lick on the sitar. And then the song comes again. So sometimes the singers, they'll call out the name of God and they'll put it in that space in between the lyrics of the song. Like Srita Kamala Kutamandala Hari Srita Kamala Kutamandala Dhritakundala Kalitalalita Banamala Jayo Jayo Devari Hare Hare Jayo Jayo Devari. So there's some space in between the words of the song, because this is very high level spiritual song. But it's a habit of musicians, when they're singing a song, if there's some bars or some part of the bar which has some space in it, they'll insert some name of God to keep the time. So that is called Stobam. So Sankityam Pariyasava Stobam Helanam Eva. Helanam means neglectfully. Somehow the person is just saying the name of God without any attention put into it. So these are 4 types of Shraddha Namabhas. And then the Vishnu Doots described as a 5th type. And the 5th type is Avashaha, helplessness, in the helpless state. So we mentioned that already. When you can't hold on to the cliff with your fingertips anymore. Haribo! When you're falling off a cliff, when you trip over and you fall in the road and the car is coming, when you break your legs, when someone beats you with a stick, when a dog is biting you, whatever. So all of these, helplessly calling out, Avash, this is all Namabhas. And this will completely destroy all sins completely. So, therefore, this Ajamil is completely pure. You cannot take him away. You should not touch him. He's a pure person. You are doing adharma by trying to take him away. In this way, the Vishnu Dutas, they scolded the Yamadutas. All this time, while this conversation was going on, Ajamil was there and he was watching it. The Yamadutas are saying this, Vishnu Dutas are saying that, the Yamadutas are saying that. And the whole time he was listening, what was he doing? Sadhu Sangha. He was having Sadhu Sangha. Because some people say, you don't need a guru to go to the spiritual world by chanting. No guru is required, because Ajamil had no guru. No, he had a guru. The Vishnu Dutas. He had their Sangha and he listened to Harikatha and the glories of the holy name from them. So, if a person says on the strength of the Ajamil story that you don't need a guru, you can just chant and you go to the spiritual world, then they are doing the offense to the holy name, Guru Avagya, to minimize the spiritual master. It's also, you can also make offense to the spiritual master by not having a spiritual master, by saying you don't need a guru. This is also offense to the Akhanda Guru Tattva, because any individual spiritual master is Vyasti Guru, But that individual spiritual master, Vasti Guru, is the manifestation of the Samasti Guru, the Akhanda Guru Tattva, the original one Guru Tattva. So one may say, I have not offended any Guru. No, they're making offense to the Guru Tattva itself. So Guru is necessary. So then, the Yamadutas, they went away, and the Vishnu Dutas, they were still there, and Ajamila, he wanted to speak to them. So first he bowed down to them. And then he went to speak, but they disappeared. So he wasn't qualified. Himself, he was not qualified to have a discussion with them. But now, he was amazed. Oh, the name of the Supreme Lord is so wonderful. And Supreme Lord is so kind and merciful to me. Alas, alas, I was so sinful. I have beaten people, I have stolen from them, I have killed brahmanas. I was so lusty. I left my very qualified and chaste wife and lived with a prostitute who was also an alcoholic. And I have wasted my whole life. Alas, alas. And he began to criticize himself. Now he's experiencing anutap. This is very important. Anutap means regret, repentance, contrition. It is a sign that the Lord's mercy has come to us. This is Mahaprabhu's teaching. After delineating the glories of the holy name in the first verse of Shikshastakam, now he's giving instruction how to chant. So his first instruction is what? Nam namakari bahudani jasava shaktis tatrapitani amata smarnena kala etadrishi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi. Then Durdaiva middishamiha janinara. Oh my Lord, you have invested all your powers in your holy names. And you are so kind that you allow us to easily approach you through the chanting of the holy name. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for chanting. And this Durdaiva means I am so unfortunate, means I am so offensive. I have no attraction for chanting. So, by this verse, Mahaprabhu is teaching us the first stage of spiritual life is anutap. Repentance, regret, contrition. Alas, alas, I am so sinful, I am so offensive. Sridhar Swami in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, Kripa nimitto nutapaha. When does a person repent? When do they become filled with remorse for their own misbehavior? When? Kripa nimitto nutapaha. The cause of repentance is Lord's mercy. So it's the sign. This is the difference between an actual Vaishnava and a fake Vaishnava who is just like, going to a Halloween party dressed as a Vaishnava. Just wearing tilak and kantimala does not make you a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is a person who has received the Lord's mercy, and the sign of that mercy is lamenting one's fallen condition and repenting for that. Hari Hari Bifali Janama Goinu Manusya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Pachiya Janiya Shunya Pisha Kohinu Hari Bifali Janama Koinu. Hari Hari, oh God, oh my Lord, Hari. Bifale Janama Koinu. My life is passed fruitlessly. I have wasted my time. Manusya Janama Paya Radha Krishna Bhajya. I attained this very rare human birth, but I have not done bhajan of Radha and Krishna. But rather I have drunk poison of sense gratification, remained in a state of distractedness, and trying to enjoy in the association of materialistic persons. Alas, alas. So, Janiya Suniya Bisha Koinu, knowingly I have taken poison. If a person takes poison by accident, it's a tragedy. But if a person knowingly takes it, how unfortunate they are. So Mahaprabhu said, Durdaiva mittishamiha janina anuraga. The first teaching in Nam Bhajan is anutap, regret. Oh Krishna. Janmaishvarya sutta sribi edamana madapuman naivat apidatam vaitvam kinchana gochara. Persons who are intoxicated by their aristocratic birth, by their wealth. I am very wealthy. I have a very big bank balance. Shruta, by their education, or by their beauty and health. Those persons who are proud in that way, then they cannot sincerely chant the holy name. But a person who is Dina Chaitasa, yesterday we were discussing how Gargacharya came to Nanda Maharaj. And he said, Mahat Vicharanam Nilan Grihinam Dina Chaitasam. Oh, great souls like you come to the houses of us householders who are Dina Chaitasa, who have very low consciousness. Actually, the meaning is this, that if a person has Dina Chaitasa, they think I am very low, then they can get the mercy of the Mahat. You see? Just having low consciousness, then one will get some mercy because Vaishnavas are very merciful. But who will get very profound kripa? Only that person who thinks, I am Dina Chaitasa. I am very low and fallen, and very ignorant, very sinful, very offensive. So now Ajamila, after the Vishnu Doots had disappeared, he was lamenting so much. But then he thought, though I am so offensive and so sinful, but I must have done something. I must have done something auspicious. Otherwise, how would I chant the holy name at the last moment of my life? This is also a very profound point. A person who has still Namaparad, they cannot chant in the last moment. When the last moment comes, they'll do something else. They'll say something else, they'll think of something else. They may be full of fear, or the mind just may be like blank and emptiness, like a void. Only if a person has chanted Nam Abhas, some chanting without offense, then Krishna is so merciful, he will inspire them to chant the holy name in the last moment of their life. So that chanting the holy name in the very last moment is a symptomatic. It reveals whether or not the person is offenseless or offensive. This is one thing. This is one teaching here. Now another teaching here is, when he says, I must have done something auspicious, means, why didn't he call his last child John, Bill, Henry? Why? In India now they used to always give spiritual names, but now in India also they give that like Baku, Raku and Chaku. They're giving just funny sounding names, they have no meaning. Why did this sinful person give this name Narayan? And the reason is that early in his life he met a sadhu. And that sadhu, by his merciful glance and wishes, caused him to be inspired to call his last son Narayan. And then all his sins, past, present and future, Papa, Bij and Avidya were all destroyed, but he didn't even know. And because he chanted Namabhas in his life, and he was chanting it again and again, so in the last moment he could chant the name, and he had the Sadhu Sangha, the association of the Vishnu Doots. By hearing Harikatha and the glories of the name, for them he developed Shraddha. So now he said, I will leave all my sins, sinful activities, and he left his home and he went to Haridwar, to a holy place in Haridwar on the bank of the Ganges, and there he was chanting and he tried to be fully absorbed in Harinam. And one day when he was absorbed, then he saw a very beautiful golden airplane come, and his 4 friends who he had seen before, who he wanted to speak to but never had the chance, they came back for him. And there and then, Ajamila, he received his swarup, his spiritual body, and he got onto the plane with them, and he gave pranam to them, and now he could speak to them, and very happily he flew to Vaikuntha. So, it's quite amazing. Actually, what happened was, from an external point of view, Ajamila died. didn't know it. You see? If you look at it from the outside, here's this old man, he's in Haridwar sitting alone, chanting Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. But inside he was chanting and he was absorbed. And then, oh, what's that? He saw an airplane was coming. And his friends were there, the Vishnu Doots. And he got a beautiful form like theirs. He got onto the plane and then he flew through the universe and went to Vaikuntha. That was his experience. So this is why Nam, one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but why Nam is called Amrita. It is immortality, it gives immortality, pure. Amrita means deathlessness. Because though everyone can say, yeah, what is this? Ordinary people die and you devotees also die. But actually Vaishnava, he never experiences what is death. He doesn't even know that he's died. Because this pastime comes out, the Supreme Lord takes him. And this is in the mood of Vaikuntha or Ajamila. For us, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, if devotee is qualified, he will be in the state of bhav and he's already forgotten his body, and in the Swarupa's very beautiful Manjari, under the guidance of Rupa Manjari, will be serving Radha Krishna, and just it will go on like that. He won't even know that he is. That's why we say Nitya Lila Pravishta Om. He is entered into the pastimes of the Lord. So Ajamila's life, it was a success. In the meantime, the Yamduts, they set off and they went back to Yamalok and they came to Yamaraj and they gave pranam and they said, oh, we have never been obstructed. Everywhere we go around the universe and we take everyone and no one can stop us. But today we have been blocked. So what is this? Has Dharma been cancelled? Now what's going on? People who did sinful activities their whole life and it's all been cancelled, no more punishments, what's going on? Who is there who is greater and more powerful than you? How many gods are there in this universe? And if there are so many gods, then who's going to decide what reaction comes to this one? And one god will say, oh, he has to have this reaction. The other one will say, no, he can't have that reaction. We're not giving that one. And the gods may quarrel with each other over who gets what punishment. So they were worried. In fact, they were ready to resign from their job. They were so disappointed because they'd never been obstructed ever before. They were so disappointed that the Yamduts, they wanted to resign from their job. They didn't want to do it anymore. And so they put this question towards Yamaraj so that he could tell them what's going on, so their faith could be reinstalled and they could continue doing their work faithfully. So then Yamaraj said, oh, the tattva of the holy name is very, very mysterious. Even great rishis, they cannot understand it. You know, Bhishmadev himself has said, Na yashaka richit rajan pumam bheda-abheda-tattva yadvijikyasaya yuktam huyanti kavayopihi. No one can understand the intentions of the Supreme Lord. And even the kavis, very great learned persons who are studying Shastra, they have questions and try to find the answers. But they become bewildered simply by asking the questions. What's going on? Bhishmadev has said this. So Yamaraj, he told the Vishnuduts, Nam Tattva, the truth about the holy name, is so profound. Swayambhu Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Pralado Janako Bhishmo Bali Vayasaki Vayam. He said there are 12 Mahajans. Swayambhu, Lord Brahma. Narad, Shambhu, Shiva. The 4 Kumaras. So we say there are 12 Mahajans, but one of them is the 4 Kumaras, so there's actually more than 12. There's like 15. But it's the 12. It's the 12 because one of them, they're in a group. Okay? The 4 Kumaras. Kapil Dev, Manu, Prahlad, Janak Maharaj, Bhishma Dev, Bali Maharaj, Vyasakini Shukadev Goswami, and Vayam, us, he's saying about himself, and Yamaraj. He said, myself and these other persons, we are the 12 Mahajans, and they are called Mahajans. Why? Because Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gata sapanta. The secrets of Dharma, transcendental Dharma, it's very, very secret. Only the Mahajans know it. And therefore, Mahajano yena gata sapanta. It is incumbent upon us, it is our responsibility to just follow in the footsteps of those Mahajans. Taka upatista shrutayo bina nasa vrishya yasya matana binam. You cannot understand by logic. You cannot understand by studying the Vedas, because the Vedas appear to say different things in different places. And the common person cannot reconcile the apparently contradictory statements. Nasa vrishya yasya, and the different rishis. Matam Nabinam, they all have different opinions. So many rishis. Gautam Rishi has given Nyaya Shastra, Kanad Rishi has given Vaisheshik Shastra, Kapil Rishi has given the Sankhya Shastra, Patanjali has given Yoga Darshan, Jaimini Rishi has given the Purva Mimamsa Karmakanda. So many rishis have given all different opinions. Which one is right? So none of those rishis. Actually, you can't become a famous rishi without having your own different opinion, right? Because if you have the same opinion as another rishi, you're just his follower, so you don't become a historical personality, creating a new idea, a new perspective. So, all the rishis, they all have different opinions, so everything is confusing. Then how will we know what to do? Mahajano yena katha sapanta. We have to follow the Mahajans. So, even these great rishis like Jaimini Rishi, he's saying, only the Mahajans know, these other rishis, they don't understand. And what is the secret of Dharma? Etavan eva lokesmin pumsam dhamma parasmrta bhakti yogo bhagavati tham nama grahanadivi. The highest Dharma for all living beings is bhakti. And this bhakti begins with chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then Yamaraj, he gave instructions to the Yamaduts. He said, you should only arrest those persons who have never chanted the name of God, who have never bowed down to the deity of God, who have never served Vaishnavas. You should take them. But anyone who has bowed down to the Lord, who has chanted the holy name, who has served Vaishnavas, they are not under my control. And then Yamaraj folded his hands and he prayed to Krishna, please forgive me. Because he considered that the mistake of his servants, the mistake of the servants actually falls onto the master. So because he's their master, he was considering that they tried to take an innocent person, that this was his fault. And he prayed, oh my Lord, please forgive me, please forgive me. So Vaishnav Sangha, just a touch of Vaishnav Sangha can give all perfection in life. That touch of Vaishnav Sangha inspired him, made his life auspicious, that he called his child Narayan. And then this name destroyed all sins. Slowly he was developing his affection, and in the end he became perfect. So, whatever is our condition, even if chanting, but not so much experience, so anubhav, realization is coming, but still one should go on chanting. Nama parada yuktanam nama nyanta harantivam. Just go on chanting, and in a very humble mood, begging for mercy. And gradually the nama parada will go away, and miraculously, inexplicably, the waves of love will rise up in the heart. Jivera kalyana sadhana kam jagate asye madhurnam avityati mirahu tapana rupe ridka kone pirache. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, Jivera kalyana sadhana kam. In order to accomplish the auspiciousness for all living entities, this Harinam has descended to the world. Avidya timira tapanarupe rit gagane viraje, and it rises up like the sun rising at dawn in the heart and dispels all darkness and illuminates the spiritual world and one's eternal loving relationship with Krishna. Sri Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari.